Good afternoon. Today, as always, very interesting information. Top 5 celebrities with tragic pasts. It's easy to take a look at celebrity life and assume that everything is great. With all this fame and money, your problems will easily disappear. But the reality is that celebrities are real people, and no money can help them change what was in their past. Perhaps they are now at the top of the world, but for the next 5 celebrities, not everything was always so rosy. 1. Everyone realizes that Britney Spears has experienced some unpleasant occasions. We verged on losing a generational symbol, yet Britney has appeared. There is no edge you can't be brought again from. She got the assistance she required, and has now continued her legitimate job as Queen of Pop. In any case, while a large portion of us will recollect the show of 2007, not every person knows about her initial years, which were seemingly worse. Growing up, Britney's family was obviously so poor that her damaging, alcoholic dad would clearly go out chasing for bunny or squirrel to take care of the family. While Britney denies that at any point occurred, actually they were poor. As opposed to finding a new line of work, Lynn Spears chose the most ideal approach to make easy money was off the rear of her little girl's vocals. Lamentably for Britney, it worked, and she turned into the sole provider to a group of 5. At 13, she was drinking. At 14, she was engaging in sexual relations, and was permitted to have young men remain over. Her mom likewise set her up with a multi-year-old for PR purposes. At 15, she was taking medications. At that point her profession saw the emergency occurred, and she must be set under conservatorship. In any case, in spite of the way that her dad was an oppressive alcoholic who once held a detailed at knife point for 4 hours, he was regarded a more appropriate gatekeeper than Lynn, who obviously has little contact with Britney these days for all her distinction, cash, and achievement. Relatively few of us would need to exchange places with Britney. However, while her story might be unenviable, it is at last a glad one. The story of the star who gazed passing in the face just to bonk him with an umbrella is one that will be advised for a considerable length of time to come. 2. Carrie's life began really typical, with his bookkeeper father giving the family a conventional white-collar class life. Lamentably, Carrie's dad lost his employment, constraining the comic to drop out of school and begin functioning as a janitor to help bolster the family. Things were very awful, with the whole family compelled to live in a van at a certain point. Carrie even got this ludicrous thought that he could enhance his janitor's pay by performing stand-up satire on the side. Obviously, things worked out for Carrie, and his parody vocation took off rapidly. Be that as it may, he would experience inconvenience again years after the fact, when he parted ways with his better half Catriona White, who ended her life only days after the fact. A note on her iPad blamed Carrie for destroying her life by acquainting her with drugs, mishandling her, and giving her various STDs. It was before long found that White had hitched another man while dating Carrie, obviously for a green card. The spouse in White's mom at that point propelled an unfair demise claim, blaming the on-screen character for driving White to suicide. It was later uncovered that White had faked STD tests to make it appear as though she was spotless before she met Carrie, and contaminated a while later. Following quite a while of fights in court, Carrie was found not guilty. 3. Jack Nicholson was conceived in Neptune City, New Jersey, in 1937. His mom was 17 when she brought forth him, and had been filling in as a showgirl when she got pregnant. In spite of the fact that she was hitched, she before long discovered that her better half was at that point wedded, and was disregarded with her kid. There were likewise a few questions with regard to whether the genuine dad was the hitched man, her stage director, or another obscure man. Apart from that, Nicholson had a quite typical childhood. One that could scarcely be depicted as appalling, in any way, shape or form. Be that as it may, in 1974, Nicholson's adolescence was retroactively changed perpetually when it was uncovered that his late sister was in truth his mom. The individuals who had raised him as their own were in reality his grandparents, and his other sister was his auntie. By that point, his introduction to the world, mother and assenting mother, had both passed. Nicholson's story is a long way from the just one of its sort, with a lot of families pulling a similar stunt for youthful, unmarried moms. What's more, it appears he harbors no malevolence towards those engaged with the falsehood, expressing, "I'd state it was a really emotional occasion. Yet it wasn't what I'd call damaging. After all, when I discovered who my mom was, I was entirely well mentally shaped. In actuality, it made many things more clear to me. In the event that anything, I felt thankful." 4. Charlize Theron is broadly viewed as one of the most gifted individuals in Hollywood. Famous for her capacity to change herself, Theron's exhibition as Aileen Wuornos earned her both an Oscar and a merited spot in true-to-life history. Be that as it may, if her past had been somewhat extraordinary, we may never have known about the feisty South African we have all come to know and love. Theron experienced childhood with a homestead with her folks, who were secured a cold marriage. Her dad was a smash, and in spite of the fact that Theron says he never truly manhandled her, he abused her mom. One night, an auntie called her to caution that her dad was getting back home in an especially awful state of mind. He before long appeared with his sibling taking steps to shoot Charlize and her mom. There was a great deal of belligerence and disturbance, until he started shooting through her entryway into her room, so, all in all, her mom slaughtered him with a handgun and fired his sibling. Luckily, investigators decided that the mother had acted in self-protection, and Theron has proceeded to accomplish extraordinary things throughout everyday life. 5. Pierce Brosnan's hardships pretty much started at the very beginning. Born into a poor family in rural Ireland, he was swiftly abandoned by his father, who he would only go on to meet once. His mother was forced to send him to live with his grandparents while she worked as a nurse in England, then his aunt and uncle, and then onto a boarding house. His mother visited twice a year until he could move to England at age 11, at which point he became the focus of school bullies. In 1980, Brosnan married Cassandra Harris and adopted the 3 children of her late husband, adding one more to the mix for good measure. But in 1991, Cassandra died in his arms after a 4-year battle with ovarian cancer, which would later go on to take the life of their 41-year-old daughter Charlotte in 2013. By then, he had become estranged from his son Chris, who had a major drug problem resulting in fights, thefts, and 2 drunk driving crashes in 2 years. The crashes may have been the straw that broke the camel's back, as Brosnan had already narrowly avoided losing his son Sean at 13. After Sean's cousin drunkenly drove off a 200-foot cliff. Despite all this, Brosnan doesn't expect any sympathy, saying that while his childhood may have been unconventional, it was his normal. Subscribe to the channel and click on the bell. See you soon, and don't be sick.